So let's talk about the NBA. Let's talk about what is happening. And right now, what I'm saying is like, what is the league gonna look like in a few years? Because what we saw recently, right, was that the big three started up again. I saw that today. I heard about it, and the big three is a league, which has been growing in popularity, and the NBA I think tried to take it down, but it's basically a basketball league. I think it's a 3v3, three versus three league, where players will compete to have the best outcome possible. I think it works like the NBA, but uh, in the sense that it's a big, talk point in terms of the fact that it is different than NBA basketball by producing a product which is much more centered on, like grit and grind fundamentals and stuff like that, as opposed to being centered on, like skill, like they centered themselves more on just having legends of the game playing a basketball which is different. It's a half court system. They play with a 4 point line. And it was created by Ice Cube, I think, more for the love of the game, more for what the NBA doesn't have, which are veterans that were kicked out of the league just to make space for younger guys. And I think that, especially with the big three, since they don't take themselves as seriously, they get to have like big three lineups of, basketball players, of rappers, of basically it's just like a cultural hub of a bunch of like anyone who can play, anyone who can actually put themselves out there. It's men and women. They all can have their fun, and they can all actually go on to the big three and actually actually play, since they have like the all-star game, in which some of the rappers that have participated in the big three all-star game haven't participated in the NBA one. And in my opinion, I do think that it is a system of where, you know, the league has been growing on its own for a while. The reason why I talk about this is because, as much as I am a basketball channel, I am also a basketball channel first before I'm an NBA channel. Is what I'm sorry. I'm gonna rephrase it. I'm an NBA channel. I'm a basketball channel before I am an NBA channel. You know, so seeing this be able to, this league and the way that they're playing and the way that they structure themselves, you know, I honestly really like the big three. I think it's an innovative way of playing basketball, and having a 3v3 league just centered on these types of matchups, on having, you know, guys who are now retired who can play against each other, maybe professional hoopers who don't want to go to the G League, as we all know that the G League is pretty painful for a younger, less experienced person, as it will normally not get you anywhere. Like G League MVPs and champions normally don't get signed by the league, and it, because of the draft, most people from the G League are eventually, you know, just exiled into staying in the G League, or maybe they'll get a few chances in their career to go up. So if you're not young, you play basketball and you want to be a competitor, but you don't want to play in the G League due to the fact that, yes, it might be a league to start off with. You don't get paid that much. You can't gain that much of a recognition, and even if you want to win, right, you don't have that many opportunities due to the fact that maybe, let's say, you sign under a really good team like the Denver Nuggets in the G League, you can, like, the Denver Nuggets are most probably only going to pick you up if they have an injury guy or an asset. So in that sense, we don't really ever see guys from the G League be superstars. And in the big three, I feel like you could go showcase your talents. We've seen guys like James Johnson, Scary Joe, no, Joe Johnson. I'm sorry. Be able to really put on for the NBA, and he did play in the big three. And now, seeing them and the way that they've, conducted themselves, and now with how they do it, they use less of the stadiums, not of the stadiums, of the arenas, and they are able to have, these more intense games as, like, to the 50-point system, you guarantee that every bucket is very important, right? As last year, I even saw, like a like Nick Young and I think it was James Johnson which won the championship, and there was a game winner and it stopped right there. It was an amazing game and it was pretty entertaining to see, the way that happened. I do believe that, with this being said, basketball as a product and as a fan base is growing, so there should be advantage taken of that, as there is a better system, right, to be played with, especially when you can take advantage of the fact that basketball is such a global sport. Now, with all of these things having been discussed, with all of these things said, now what we have to talk about is, how does this affect the league? The reason why I think it affects the league is because now, due to the decline of the league, the Big Three has made direct competition to the NBA. And I mean that. Like, they've gone out right and say, are you sick of like 140-point games each time? Are you sick of everything, the way that they play? And in my opinion, I do believe that someone who's making competition for the league to get better results is probably a good thing. It happened with the XFL and the NFL, where the XFL was like, we're tougher, we're stronger, we're going to hit you harder. It did get a lot of the guys injured, but it worked. The NFL had to keep their product being good because the XFL was actually doing competition until they obviously had to shut down. So now that we see other leagues starting to form, right? What I'm asking is basically like, if these things, right, happen, if these things get to be progressed, right, and they get to be done, what I'm wondering is, are the NBA gonna make changes based on these other leagues forming? It's very easy to just stay in your own lane, do what you do, and be able to, have your way in the NBA because they make so much money, they play a certain way, and it gets very comfortable. But with the league being now in a position where it's like you have to do something, right, about your product, about the way that you play, and about how the league is progressing, I do believe that it's like, okay, so if you're gonna do this thing where you're going to change the league, or maybe implement some rules, or maybe just tell the refs to allow certain things, or maybe not, or maybe switch something up in the league due to how much attention there has been towards the NBA's lack of defense and the way that the game is played? Or are you going to be complacent and allow your league to fail and to have reduced viewership just because people are not getting interested in the game? As I already said, they need more competitiveness, but apart from competitiveness, I feel like the storylines also need to get better, which is a big thing. So, in my opinion, when we're speaking about all of these things and now the competition which is surging for these leagues, what I wanted to pose the question of was, are these leagues eventually going to take over the NBA, which I doubt, and is this just a temporary era for the league like the 1970s was, where players are becoming way too skilled and the NBA will eventually implement rules that will refine their game? Because if we're being 1,000% honest, the NBA is a young game and they have not been around for the length of time that other sports like baseball or football have. Maybe this is just a growing period. Maybe this is just some adjustments like every other league makes. Maybe this is temporary, and eventually we'll get the NBA basketball that we love. And I know that this was all started due to the All Star game, but these are very important things to talk about.